still 2015 when Republican candidate Donald Trump directly called for a shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. As he assumed office, President Trump immediately embarked on moving forward with his Islamophobic agenda, in part by issuing executive orders to ban travelers from 6 predominantly Muslim countries. As the effort failed, the president issued a revised Muslim ban, which was similarly blocked by courts. The administration lawyers argue that the ban was not meant to target Muslims, while the original Muslim ban candidate Trump issued as a policy proposal was deleted from his campaign's website. Welcome to We the People. I am your host, Bahman Nurai. In this episode, we will try to find out what President Trump and his associates have in mind regarding Muslims. In the second part of the show, we will look at how President Trump abruptly dismissed the FBI director just as he was heading an investigation into Trump's possible collusion with Russia ahead of the 2016 presidential vote. You're watching We the People.
Although you can still watch Trump read it online, the statement calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States is now deleted from the Trump campaign website.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on.
Richmond, Virginia, home to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, hosts the Trump administration lawyers so they can make their case in favor of the ban, which in part calls for a 90-day pause on immigrants from 6 Muslim-majority countries entering the United States, listed by the Homeland Security as Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen.
We are now joined by Edward Rimes, political analyst, TV producer and columnist at Mint Press News. Mr. Rimes, regardless of how practical the travel ban has been, how do you think it can influence the future of Muslims in the country?
Well, I mean, this country has always had a complex and troubled history with immigrants to start with. I mean, you can start back with the Chinese Exclusion Act back in the 1800s. You can look at the Japanese internment during World War II. You can even look during the early 20th century into the mid-20th century when we were forcibly sterilizing people from countries in Eastern Europe. So we've always had this troubled history with immigrants in this country.
Some argue that since Trump never disavowed his campaign statements to directly bar Muslims, his executive order is also aimed at targeting Muslims rather than the express purpose of fighting terrorism.
Well, not attacking a specific religion and its followers is never the answer. And how can the U.S. combat terrorism be more effective about it? Well, stop. I mean, you think about the countries we've banned, those are the countries we've invaded. So I think a quick and easy answer to that is stop invading countries to the point to where you're creating refugees, where you're creating a refugee crisis. Stop disrespecting the sovereignty of other nations in that region. You can stop terrorism in that way.
The argument, though not new, spoke a lot as for years the U.S. has been implicated in covert and overt support for Takfiri terrorism thousands of miles away in the Middle East.
When we come back, we're going to focus on Donald Trump's decision to fire the FBI director, James Comey. Now, as some media say, does he take U.S. democracy into dark and dangerous new territory? Stay tuned.
Trump suddenly fires FBI Director James Comey. The move serves as a hurdle for the Federal Bureau of Investigation's probe into the alleged ties between Trump's associates and Russia ahead of the 2016 election. With the investigation underway all this while, why should Trump dismiss Comey now? The timing of the move grabs attention.
The investigation started after the U.S. intelligence community concluded that Russia had played a role in the election that yielded now President Trump, an allegation dismissed both by Moscow and the president. Since Mr. Comey has been fired, how will the investigations continue? We discussed the matter with Derek Ford. Derek is an educational theorist who teaches philosophy and history of education. He's also a writer. Now, Derek, how serious are allegations against President Trump?
I don't think that we are likely to see any serious, damning evidence indicating, serious collusion between Trump and Russia. And to be honest, I think those of us who are concerned with peace and justice in the world should focus on what we know to be Trump's actual crime.
Now let's see what my colleague Susan Madaris has got for us from New York.
Former FBI Director James Comey cut short a trip to Los Angeles after learning of his sudden firing on the news. In a letter delivered to Comey's office, the president cited the reason for his firing as the way he handled 2016 presidential candidate Hillary Clinton's email case by mistreating her, contradicting himself while he was on the campaign trail.
It took guts for Director Comey to make the move that he made.
Comey was also leading a probe into possible collusions between the Trump presidential campaign and Russia to sway the 2016 presidential elections.
We are now learning that just days before President Donald Trump fired him, James Comey told lawmakers he sought more resources for investigation into the White House.
Congressman Ted Deutsch says now more than ever, the U.S. needs an independent counsel to investigate the ties between Russia and the Trump campaign and the White House, because the U.S. president seems to be firing anyone who gets too close for comfort.
What we've seen, unfortunately, is a pattern in the firings of the top prosecutor in New York, the acting attorney general, and now the director of the FBI. Each one was fired when the investigation got closer to the White House.
Deutsch also called Trump's actions, quote, a gross abuse of power, and stressed that the Russia story will not go away.
And we have to get to the bottom of this investigation, and we have to determine exactly what happened here. All of the efforts of the president to try to block these investigations will fail because there's too much at stake for the American people.
Donald Trump, meanwhile, met Russia's foreign minister at the White House on Wednesday, just one day after firing the FBI director. He lashed out at critics and defended his decision.
In a farewell letter to staff seen by CNN, former FBI Director James Comey said that he was not dwelling on President Donald Trump's decision to fire him and, quote, the manner it was executed. For We the People, I'm Susan Madaris in New York.